So y'all, I really don't like listening to the radio. A lot of the new music that comes out today is really just not for me. As an 80s baby, I just prefer the old. First of all, I'm more of an R&B person anyways, but I just prefer the music that I grew up on, and even like the music that my parents grew up on versus music that comes out nowadays. So I really don't listen to the radio that much. But every now and then, when my phone is acting up, I don't know what it is, because sometimes nine times out of 10 I'll get in my car and my Bluetooth will sync up just fine. But every now and then, I'll have that malfunction where I'll get in my car, and no matter how many times I try to unpair it and then repair it and reset it, turn my car off, let it sit for a second, then turn my car back on, sometimes I just cannot get my Bluetooth to pair. And I guess in that sense, I could just not listen to anything. But I like having music in the background, even if I'm just thinking, having something playing, softly in the background. So this is something that actually happened almost a year ago at this point. But, well, not a year ago, but it happened last year. But I had someone from my past that tried to come back last year. And I don't know how many people go through that, with that, like, revolving, with those people who always try to leave the door open so that they can come back later. But I have people in my life, particularly men, in dating scenarios, that tend to try to do that. And I had this one person, and the crazy thing is that me and this person never actually dated. We have talked several times in the past. We'll, talk, start to get to know one another, and then it'll just fade away. It'll just completely stop. Now, in the past, it's always been him, where he'll initiate the conversation. He always is the one that initiates, because the interaction is always so random that I don't even bother trying to reach back out whenever he just disappears. I just let it be. So I guess over the years, I had never really paid attention to that until last year, when he tried to come back, and he was telling me, like, out of nowhere, he comes back and he's like, "Oh, we haven't spoken in so long. How have you been?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing fine, everything." Actually, it wasn't even last year. It was the year before last year. It was 2022. Last year is when I just officially walked away from it. But he came back and he was like, "Oh, how have you been? All this and that. We haven't spoken in so long." And I was like, "Oh, I'm good," all this and that. So it started off just catching up as friends. And then quickly it started to, or quickly he changed the tone of it, I should say, and to being like, "Oh, I've always thought that you were a great person. I've always thought that you were super nice. I've always had like the biggest crush on you." And it's really weird, I have to say. It's really weird when, I don't think people even understand, like, the energy comes across. First of all, it comes across so fake. It doesn't even give any type of authentic feel to it at all. It comes across as so fake when people have that kind of energy, or that kind of approach, I should say, where they come back and they're like, "Oh, I always thought that you were so great, and I always thought that you were so nice, and I've always been attracted to you. I just never said anything," and this and that. And sometimes, sometimes that can be true, and sometimes, that can be genuine. And I will say, if it's someone who you knew, who comes back years later and tells you, "Hey, I used to like you back in the day, but I never said anything," the first time, or if they do it once, I should say, there's a chance that it could actually be real. They could actually be expressing their true feelings, or they could have just taken them some time to work up the nerve to express their true feelings. But when people have a tendency to have this revolving, I want to call it a revolving method, where they come back every couple of years or so, and then they start spilling this. At this point, it just sounds fake, because he's sitting here and he's saying this, and it just happened to be one of those times where my Bluetooth would not hook up to my phone. So I'm talking, and we were communicating, via WhatsApp. Because my work schedule was opposite of his, we couldn't really talk because either he was at work, I was at work, or we were sleeping. And so we would communicate a lot during WhatsApp. We would just, record messages and then, play them later and all this and that. I did most of the recording. He was more of like a texter, which that eventually got on my nerves too, because I was like, I just now realized I'm just talking and talking and talking, and you're saying little to nothing. But anyways, it was one of those times where I was, at work listening to one of the messages that he has actually recorded, because he did record every now and then. He was just 90% a texter. And I ended up getting in my car and trying to hook up my Bluetooth, and it wouldn't work. And so I'm listening to the radio, and it was one of those, what do you call it, like throwback days? It was when I was working my evening shift, so it was either a Tuesday or a Thursday, and it was I guess maybe like a throwback Thursday or a throwback Tuesday or some crap like that. But that song, Sunshine Anderson, Heard It All Before, ended up being the song that came on once I finally gave up trying to pair my Bluetooth. I was like, okay, I'll just put on the radio, and then I'm just gonna, go home, because the more time I'm wasting trying to connect this Bluetooth, I could have been home by now. So I'm hearing that Heard It All Before, and I'm just thinking in my head, like, you know what? So I start going back, and this is probably gonna sound a little bit like I was doing too much, and I'll admit that, but I started going back and looking at old messages, because we've communicated over the years through several means, text messages, Facebook Messenger. We did go to high school together. I don't even have Facebook anymore. I don't even know if Facebook, I don't even think Facebook is like the same. I think now it's like a musician page or something. It just went to something completely different. So not Facebook. I meant MySpace. Turned to something completely different. But we used to communicate on MySpace years ago. But anyways, I started going back and looking at like old messages, like from years ago, and I'm realizing that like every time you come back, you're saying the same thing, and it's like, okay, so you keep saying that you think I'm just this awesome, this great person, and that you've always really liked me and all this and that. You just never said anything, but you had said something a few years ago, a few years before that, a few years before that. Like, you've said something, but you've never actually pursued, anything. You've never actually pursued anything of substance, or we've never actually made it to any sort of actual status, and we've never had any longevity. It's just you popping in every couple of years. So I'm like, at this point, it sounds like a broken record. It sounds like a broken record. So I'm sitting here, and I started at this point, and I'm not gonna lie, I kept talking to him, but it wasn't because I was interested. Okay, so this is probably going to make me sound bad, but I was talking to him as though I were interested in pursuing something. I was continuing the conversation at the tone that he set, but like really in my mind, I wasn't actually interested in pursuing anything. I was just interested in seeing like how long he was going to let this go this time, and I was kind of interested in kind of trying to find out why we keep doing this, like why we keep going back and forth in this same rotation. Like, why do you keep coming back every couple of years? So we're talking, and I start asking him, we're doing that whole spiel, asking, well, what happened in your last relationship or previous relationships and this and that. So this is a couple of weeks or months into us, kind of talking, and we had already talked about the whole what happened in your past relationship, but I didn't actually ask him, I didn't ask him for like a concrete timeline. I knew he had been in a relationship. His prior relationship was like just shy of like a year long. And I knew that he had mentioned that he was like in love with that person. That was the person that he thought he was going to marry. They had moved in together, all these things. And then she had like abruptly ended the relationship. And it kind of left him in this state of confusion because he said everything was going so well. He didn't really understand why, which to me, I mean, I'm not going to say that doesn't happen, but it kind of gives, you know, I want to say it kind of, I call BS, you know what I mean? I call BS because this is a man who is very intelligent. This is a man who says that he's like big on communication. This is a man who's like, I'm only attracted to females who know how to communicate. I'm a big communicator. But y'all know what's so funny? Y'all know what's so funny? And this is, of course, me comparing people, and I typically don't like to do that, but just for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to compare. In the past, when I have met men who start off and you say, oh, what kind of thing, you know, what kind of things are you attracted, or what kind of things do you like? Any man, and this is only my personal experience, this is not like some global scale. In my experience, when men mention that, oh, they are interested in a woman who can communicate because their ex did not communicate, those end up being the type of men who suck at communication. And it's like, okay, I'm starting like, okay, so after my experience with you, I'm starting to wonder, is it that your ex didn't communicate, or is it that you just don't listen? Because that ends up being the problem. And I'm not saying like that's, like I said, I'm not saying that's everybody. This is only like a handful of experiences. But I'm like, when the first thing that comes out of their mouth is they love a woman, or they love someone who can communicate, 9 times out of 10, they end up being the one that actually sucks at communication, right? But I digress. So he was talking about how he loves a woman that can communicate because his ex didn't communicate. So, you know, at this point, like I said, we've been talking, you know, we start talking, you know, weeks turn into months, and I'm noticing that he's actually not a huge communicator himself. Like I said, we talked on WhatsApp, and I would record long messages, and he would respond, like I said, 90% of the time by text, and it would only be like a couple sentences. And the funny thing to me is I never really actually got down to the root of why. There were so many questions that I actually wanted to ask him, but I had to do it strategically, because if I would have just laid it all out there at once, he would have either gotten defensive or he would have deflected, and I wouldn't have gotten the truth out. So I kind of have to ask questions. I have to kind of spread it out, right? Like ask a question here, wait a couple of days, ask a question there, and then go back and piece it all together to see if it actually makes sense. And like I said, I know it sounds like I'm doing too much, but that's just kind of where I was at with this particular person, right? So I remember after waiting like a little while and then asking, then I realized, I was like, you know what, we talked about his previous relationship, but I never actually asked him like what the dates were, like how long it had been, because I just noticed that he seemed unhealed. And I remember telling him like, yeah, I'm on like my own personal healing journey. And I remember him asking off the bat, like very initially, I remember him asking if we could like meet up. He wanted to take me on a date and all this and that. And I told him, well, if it'd been so long since we had spoken, he actually didn't know that I wasn't even living in the same state anymore. So I told him, like, first of all, I don't even live in that state anymore. But because that is my home state, I do travel there, you know, every now and then. You know, holidays, you know, if I can. Sometimes I really don't even feel like being bothered. I'll go home just to see family and stuff. So I remember him saying, hey, next time you're in town, you know, I'd love to take you out on a date. I remember telling him, I think it was Thanksgiving or Christmas. One of those holidays, this was back in 2022, I was planning on going home. No, actually it was Thanksgiving first, and then I switched it to Christmas because I ended up not feeling like being bothered trying to drive home for Thanksgiving. And I remember him saying like, oh, you should really come. Like, it's an important time to be around family. It's the holidays. And he's actually a Hebrew Israelite. So he doesn't even celebrate the holiday. He doesn't celebrate any pagan holidays. And I don't celebrate the holidays either. Like, whenever I go home, it's really just to see family. Me personally, I don't celebrate the holidays. My family does. So I'll go home and just spend time with them while everybody gets together. But I don't personally celebrate the holidays. So it's not really like a huge deal. I only go like really if I feel like making that drive. And something in my spirit, I just did not feel like making that drive. So I ended up not going. And he was like, oh, well, you should come for Christmas and all this and that because family is so important. And I was like, yeah. I said, well, the holidays, especially going back home to Atlanta, the traffic is ridiculous. I mean, it's already ridiculous on a normal basis, but on a holiday, the traffic is ridiculous. And I told him, I was like, I don't know if I feel like sitting in traffic. I said, when I go home for the holidays, it takes twice as long to get there as it would any other time of the year, because as soon as I cross over into Georgia, I get stuck in traffic because of where I'm coming from and where I'm going. I have to go through the city to get home. And I said, I get stuck in traffic. And there was literally times in the past where I was stuck in traffic once I hit the city for longer than it took the entire drive to get to the state, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So like, I'm not coming from Florida, but let's say, for example, I was coming from Florida. Let's say it's a 5-hour drive from Florida for me to get home. When I got to Atlanta, I ended up being stuck in traffic in Atlanta for like 7 hours. And this was like years ago, but it was during Christmas. And I said, I've been stuck in traffic sitting here in Atlanta for longer than it took me to even get to the state of Georgia. So sometimes I just don't feel like making that drive, especially if I can't get an extended period of time off of work. Everybody wants to be off during the holidays. Let's just be honest. So it's hard to get time off. So I said, if I can't be off for like several days at a time, then it doesn't make sense for me to drive and spend 10, 12 hours in traffic for 1 or 2 days and then have to turn around and do it all over again. It does not make sense. And sometimes, depending upon, like, if I have to be back to work, the day after Christmas or the day after that, I may have to drive in on Christmas Eve, spend Christmas, and then drive back the day after Christmas. So it just doesn't make sense to be in traffic for all those hours for one day. So I remember telling this person, like, I only have Christmas Day off this year, and the Christmas Day and the day after. So I remember telling this person I did not want to sit in traffic. He's like, oh, well, what about family? And I said, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I said, even if I did at the last minute decide to go, I'm not meeting up with you to go out on a date. Like, no offense, but if I have to spend hours in traffic because I'm trying to go home for the holidays, I'm going to spend as much time with my family as possible. I'm not going to spend hours in traffic just to spend a couple of hours with my family just so I can turn around and go on a date with you. I'm not doing all that. And, I was getting a little annoyed because I kind of felt like it was a selfish kind of push, but I was, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and argue with anyone. I didn't say anything, but I was beginning to get a teensy bit, or maybe even more than a teensy bit. I was beginning to get annoyed because I'm like, I don't know if you really think that spending time with my family is that important, or you're just trying to talk me into coming in town because you want to go on this magical date. But I said, either way, in the back of my mind, I knew I had no intentions of actually pursuing anything with this person anyways. If I ever would have gone into town, I would have gone on a date with this person, only just to see how it's like and how the energy feels being with them face to face. Because over the phone, it definitely wasn't there. But I remember, like I said, because I keep getting off track, asking this person how long, like what was the actual time frame of their last relationship. And like I said, by the time I asked this question, we had been talking for weeks, into months. And I remember this person saying, oh, well, it started this time and it ended on this time. And I moved out on this date. So I remember like, wait a minute. Like wait, what? So I remember going back and scrolling and looking through messages, and I realized, like, this person, from the time that this person had, first of all, the other person that ended their relationship, from the time this person had actually moved out and gone and moved somewhere else, had literally only been not even 2 weeks, like a week and a half. And I said, okay, so the person that you were in a relationship with, the person that you were living with, the person that you loved, the person that you thought you were going to marry and spend the rest of your life with, ended the relationship with you, quote unquote, abruptly, and you had no knowledge, you had no idea, you were dumbfounded as to where this came from, which, like I said, this person is actually very intelligent, quite calculating. So I don't buy for a second that this woman didn't communicate anything with you. You might have not listened. You might have maybe thought that you could manipulate the situation a little bit, but I don't believe for a second. I don't believe for a second that this woman abruptly ended the relationship and it just hit you out of nowhere and you had no idea where this came from. I don't believe that for a second. And it could be true, and it happens. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It definitely happens. People do that, People will, at the drop of a dime, end a relationship, if they feel like it no longer suits them anymore. So I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I just don't buy that that's what happened in this particular scenario, But anyways, like I said, the date between when the person that he was in a relationship with, that he thought he was going to walk down the aisle with and spend the rest of his life with, from the day that person broke up with him and he moved out, to the time he was in my inbox telling me how much he's always liked me and wanted to be in a relationship, or wanted from the time that he's told me that he's always liked me and has always, just thought I was this great person, and all this was literally a matter of like a week and a half. And I just started going back and thinking, and I'm like, you know what? This quote unquote friendship that we have really only comes about when you're single and when it's a matter of convenience, right? Because then I started going back and I started thinking. So I started asking questions here and there about, and I never said any of this. Like, even when he gave me the dates, I never was like, oh, wait a minute. So you broke up with this, or this person broke up with you, and then a week later you're in my inbox. Like, I didn't even say anything. I'm just literally just taking my mental notes. And I just started asking this person, this is like I said, dispersed over time, questions of like, previous relationships, what's happened, what's this and what's that. And I'm just, slowly getting information. And I remember him saying, he was like, relationships are hard for him, and that's understandable. And I remember him saying, like, the first person he ever dated, that, he was like, the first woman that I ever dated, the first woman I ever had a serious relationship with, was like when I was an adult. He said, I didn't even date in high school because I was so shy. And I do actually remember this person being particularly shy. I do remember him being very shy and being a genuinely nice guy back when we were in high school. I do remember that. I do remember that one of my friends actually liked him in high school and tried to ask him out, and so it was so funny because my friend, she gave him her phone number and told him to call her. And first of all, she asked him, was he single? And he was like, yes. And then she gave him his phone number and told him to call her, or either that she asked for his. She might have asked for his, and he gave it to her. And then when she called him, he was like, oh, wait, I'm sorry, I forgot I have a girlfriend. And we laughed. I mean, like, not to his face. We weren't like mean girls or anything, but I remember, like, she came back to school and told us, and we laughed because he was like, oh wait, I forgot I have a girlfriend. I have a girlfriend. And she was like, what? Like, that's the first thing I asked you. And it wasn't just the way that it happened. It was funny. But he was definitely very, very shy and timid So I understood completely when he was like, it took him a while to actually get in a relationship. And he was like, for him, the woman had to be a little bit more aggressive. Not that he does not want an aggressive woman. He made that very clear. But that the woman had to be a little bit more aggressive because he's not the type that he's a little bit timid, so it's hard for him to just go up to a woman and be like, hey, I'm interested in you, I want you. But that's apparently changed him over the years with age and with confidence, and that's a great thing. I like that. But I'm kind of feeling like maybe he went from being, I'm getting like the energy that he went from being a nice guy to kind of just being a little bit arrogant, right? Or a little bit of like a douche, right? But anyways, so I just remember asking questions and then finding out, and I go back and I'm comparing timelines, and I'm like, okay, so I don't know why you keep circling the block with me. And that was really the question that I wanted to ask, but I never really got the chance to, probably because I was taking so long and spacing things out so far. But really what I wanted to know is, one, how far were you willing to take this? But of course I would have to put in time and effort to be able to see that, and I wasn't willing to do that. But I wanted to see like how far he was willing to take this, and how far he was willing to not to say that he's not a nice guy, but to play the nice guy role to get what it was that he wanted. Like, I really wanted to see what it was that he actually wanted, because so he's a Hebrew Israelite, and I only mention that because he was very devout in his faith. He's the type of person where he wakes up an hour early every morning just to read and study the Bible, which is great. It's great. Matter of fact, that was one of the things that I'm not, like, I've heard stories. I remember when I was talking to my cousin and I told her he was a Hebrew Israelite, and my cousin was like, ooh, you better be careful with those types. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And then I just started looking on YouTube about people explaining relationships they've had with Hebrew Israelites, and sorry to say, but a lot of them ended up almost being like horror stories. But I know that that's not like everybody. And the sad thing about it is, and I remember having this talk with someone else, 9 times out of 10, the people that share their stories, almost like when you go online and you look at reviews, the people who share their stories, or the people who take the time to actually do reviews, 9 times out of 10 are the ones that had a horrible experience. You just don't get a lot of people who had good experiences going and sharing that, because they're too busy like just enjoying their life, I guess. I don't know. But I remember having this long talk with someone. I was like looking at a rental property, and I remember having this great experience, and I remember just sitting there talking to the woman, and I was like, you know what? I said, I've really enjoyed talking to you. I said, you guys are friendly. You have been more than accommodating. And she was like, well, if you don't mind, she said, can you please go write a review? She said, people go online, and a lot of times with the internet, people look at reviews nowadays before they actually make decisions. And she said, when you go online and you see, she said, a lot of the reviews that we get are bad. And she said, so it makes us look like a bad company, and we're not. So she said, if you don't mind, would you please, take the time to go do a review? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And I told her, I said, well, I said, people have to realize that when you're going online and reading the reviews, absolutely take the time to read them, because sometimes those experiences that other people have had can actually save you from going through the same thing. But I said, people have to realize at the same time that you have to take it with a grain of salt, because 9 times out of 10, like I said, the people who actually take the time to leave reviews and to document and talk about their experiences are doing so because they had a bad one. So anyways, I digress, because I only say that to say, when I started looking up Hebrew Israelites, I saw like a lot of women were saying they had, horrible experiences. But like I said, even that I take with a grain of salt. But one of the things that I liked about him was how devout he was into actually getting up and reading and studying the Bible and all this. But then sometimes certain comments that he would make would just throw me off. You know what I mean? like contradictory. Like I remember having a conversation with him one time, and I don't even know how we got on the subject, but we were talking about like dating and things like that, and we were talking about specifically men having intercourse with women that they're not interested in. I don't know how we got on the topic. I don't know what we were talking about, but something that we were talking about, or something that he said, sparked me to ask that question. So I remember asking him, like, hey, have you ever had intercourse with a woman that you weren't actually interested in? And he was like, yes. And I said, okay. I said, so like so I just asked myself, like, why? I said, why? I said, and I said, you know what? I said, when we're talking about like children and women and men having children by people that they don't even really like, and it makes for a very tumultuous co-parenting relationship. But I remember telling him, like, like you're an adult, we're adults, that intercourse is great, you know what I mean? Like it's great, but that the main purpose of intercourse is to procreate. And that might have been how we ended up on the subject anyways, because he was saying something about the Bible. I don't exactly remember, but I remember telling him, like, the main point of intercourse is procreation. So I said, whenever you are intimate with a woman, and vice versa, when a woman is intimate with a man, but there's a chance that procreation might ensue from this interaction. So why would you then have intercourse with this woman who you knew you had no romantic feelings towards? And I remember him saying, well, I'm a man, and men have needs. And I remember him saying, men, we are way more sexually driven than women. He was like, we are sexually driven. He said a lot of things that we do, we actually do because we want, sex, because the outcome of it is going to be that we're going to get sex. So he said there's a lot of things that men will do just to get sex. And I said, okay, yeah, I'm not, an idiot. I know that. I'm not worried about what other men would do to get sex. I know the lengths that some people will go through just to get a woman in bed. We're talking about you here, and you're supposed to be this religious man. You're supposed to be this highly religious person. You're supposed to be this man of substance. So I'm speaking strictly about you. I don't want to know about statistics about what other people do. I'm not interested in what other people do. I want to know specifically about you. And I said, okay, so you're out with a woman, you're, paying for everything, you're, because that's the type of man that he is. He's like, I pay for dates, I don't ask a woman out and then expect her to pay. And I'm like, okay, so you take a woman out, you pay for the date. It may have just been an initial attraction, but after you get to know her, you realize, okay, personality wise, we don't mesh. So in your mind, that there's not going to be any actually longevity in this encounter, that it's really, at this point, you kind of discover that what you have for this person is merely an attraction, which is fine. But then why would you take it so far as to sleep with this person? And I'm not saying for all men, because if you are physically attracted to her, then physical attraction, I understand, is tied to sexual attraction. So I get that. But I mean, for him specifically, if you're supposed to be this man of God, why would you, after meeting this woman and finding out that the only thing you all share is a physical attraction, why would you then in turn proceed with intercourse with this person, knowing that it won't go anywhere after that? And then I'm like, and then in addition to that, the big question that I want to ask is if you know that you're not interested in anything further, then what are you saying, and how are you proceeding with continuing the interaction in order for you to get the desired outcome. You know what I mean? So while you guys are on the date, you realize, on the date that this is not someone that you're actually interested in going further into a relationship with, but you obviously have to be saying or doing something that makes, unless you guys are just two super mature adults and you guys talked and you're like, hey, I don't think it would work for a relationship, but if you'd like, we can still go home and go home and do whatever we're going to do. But I said, I don't really see that happening. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I could be wrong, but I just don't really see it panning out like that. So then my bigger concern is, once you discover that this person is not someone that you'd be interested in a relationship with, how are you proceeding with the interaction in order for it to get to the point of you guys having intercourse? So are you continuing to interact with her, although as though you desire something more, and then once you all sleep together, you just completely disappear, and then once you sleep with her, that's when you're letting her know that you're not actually interested in anything real with her? Like, is that, like, how exactly are you playing this? So that's the question that I had, and I didn't get to the point of actually asking it because I couldn't figure out a way to word it without him basically knowing exactly what I'm asking him. And I didn't want him to deflect. I honestly wanted an honest answer, but at that time, I couldn't think of how I wanted to word it, because then my next big concern would be, okay, so if you're the type of person to continue to pursue this woman or this person as though you want something of longevity just to get sex, then of course I can't trust anything that you're telling me is valid. So I couldn't ask the question flat out without him basically catching on to what I was doing. And if he did that, and let's say, for example, our connection wasn't a valid one, then he would know exactly like what I'm getting at. And the point of the matter is that's how I felt. I knew that our connection wasn't that, like I said, because he kept spinning the block with me, and he was only doing that at times that he was, single and out here. I'm single and ready to mingle and doing this and that. That's when he would come back and tell me how like great of a person that I was. And I just thought, like I said, it just all seemed really fake to me. But anyways, I only shared this like long drawn out story to be like, last year, when he did that, and like I said in the previous video, for anyone that's watched any of my previous videos, and thank you to those of you that there's, someone else from my past who, coincidentally, after I shut the door on him, there was someone else from my past who popped up on Facebook and added me as a friend after years and all this stuff. And I was surprised that person didn't hit up my phone. But then again, we haven't spoken in years, so I may have a different number. No, I don't know. That may be one of the people who was calling me from a number that I didn't recognize, or it may have been the one that texted me from the number I didn't recognize, and I didn't respond because I didn't recognize the number. But anyways, after I ended that connection, someone else from my past popped in my inbox, but this was actually a man that I had dated in the past that sent me that friend request on Facebook or anything. But anyways, the connection with the previous person, the reason I ended up calling it quits was something that he said one day. And y'all, it's always the smallest things. It's always like, isn't it like the smallest things that make the biggest impact? But I remember, like I said, we were communicating on WhatsApp, and I would send him like these long messages when he would ask questions about things, and I'd give details and all this stuff. And of course, I have to tell stories and give anecdotes and all this and whatnot, because that's just my personality. I'm just naturally a talker, right? With people that I know and feel comfortable with. Now, it's funny because people who don't know me or just know of me will say that I'm really quiet and shy. And they'll be like, oh, she like literally never says anything. She's just quiet and stays to herself. People who know me are like, are you talking about her? Like, are you sure we're talking about the same person? Because like, she never shuts up. You know what I mean? It takes her 2 hours to tell one story. So it really depends. And some people, like I said, their energy is, some people's energy really, when I get around them, I'm like, okay, I just need to keep to myself and keep my mouth shut, right? But if I feel comfortable with someone, we can literally talk all night. And like, literally, some of my coworkers, our personalities are meshed so well that literally we talk all night long for hours, right? Never ending conversations. But anyways, like I said, I'm a talker, and we were talking on WhatsApp. And I remember one time I was particularly busy, and he sends me a message like, hey, I think he said like, hey, how's it going? And I remember saying, it's going fine. He said something. He asked me a question. I remember specifically the question was 3 words, like, how's it going? How are you doing? Something like that. And I remember saying like, I'm doing fine, or I'm doing great, or something in response. But I remember my response being 3 words, because I remember him coming back like, oh, that was whack. Like, where's my recording? Like, you're supposed to give me details and all this stuff. And I remember looking at that and getting irritated. Like, I looked at it, and everything in me, just out of nowhere, I just got extremely irritated, because I was like, you know what, like, don't sit here, because he calls my recordings podcast, and he was like, you know, I really enjoy your podcast and listening to you talk. He was like, you know, when I ask you a question, like, I want my podcast answer. And I remember looking at that and being like, you give me like very little. You give me next to nothing. And I mean in communication, like not physically, because I'm not asking you for anything. But I said, when it comes to communication, you literally give me very little. You give me next to nothing to really sit up here and expect to get so much in return. And I remember responding like, you asked me a 3-word question and I gave you a 3-word answer. So what's the problem? And I remember looking at it and getting irritated, and I had so much that I wanted to say, but everything in my spirit was like, you know what? Don't even respond. So like, my last response was, you asked me a 3-word question and I gave you a 3-word answer. And I ended it at that. And like, I have not responded or said anything back since. And I just remember feeling like, you know what? And I was kind of a bit torn, because, you know, in my spirit, to be honest, y'all, and I get pretty hard-headed. I think we all do in certain circumstances. But, you know, my spirit was telling me, you know, I need to stop playing with this person anyways. You know, my spirit was telling me, my ancestors were telling me, you know, you have no intentions of doing anything or taking it anywhere with this person. Why are you putting in so much effort trying to be Inspector Gadget and trying to investigate? What difference does it make? Whatever his plan is, if he's not being genuine and he's not being authentic, whatever plan he has is not going to be successful, because you are loved and you are protected, and we're not about to let it go down like that. So my ancestors were basically telling me, and my spirit guides were telling me, why are you even trying to investigate further into what he's trying to do? Because if he's not genuine and he's not authentic, know that we're going to take it from here anyways. Like, know that we got this. We got this. And if he knows what's good for him, I'm hearing he will exit stage left now. But something in me was just like, no, because he keeps, and I was telling I wasn't telling them no, but my actions were telling them no, because I was like, he keeps doing this every couple of years, where he keeps coming back. And I want to know why, because I really want to know if he's genuinely interested in pursuing something, and maybe because of his initial shyness never said anything, or if he's really just trying to play me like he does all these other, you know, these other women that, I'm not gonna say all these, but if he's really trying to play me like he's done other women, and he's really going, because this is a lot of effort to put in over the years just to obtain sex. Like, that's a lot of effort. And I've seen men do that. I have seen men put in some significant effort just for sex. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not going to say is sex that great. I mean, sex is great, but is it really that serious? The amount of effort that people put in just for sex, like, I have to ask, is it really that serious? So, like, all this time and all these years, I just really want to know, like, what is your deal? And I guess it kind of sucks because, like, I never got that answer. And that's really all that I wanted. That's all that I wanted. And all I would have needed to do is to go on one date with him to see how he pursues the date. Because he did mention that I did get him to admit to, when we were talking about dating and intercourse and stuff like that, he was like, yeah, he said, if it's a woman that I really like, and I really value, and I really want to get to know her for something serious, he said, I will take my time. So if that woman says that that she wants to wait, I will wait, and I will wait until she says she's ready. But he was like, if it's a woman who I'm not really interested in it, and I see that we don't have any longevity, and I, mentioned that I would like to, have intercourse, and she says no, he said, I'm not even going to give her a second date. It's just going to end there because there's no point in pursuing this if I know I don't want anything of longevity with you. So really, all I needed was that one date. All I needed was that one date to see if he was going to ask for it. And if I said no, would there be subsequent dates? All I needed was that one date. But it didn't even get that far. And I guess Spirit was telling me, like, there's no point in taking it there because I really have this strong feeling that it was never going to get that far. I really have this strong feeling that he is really only spinning the block whenever he's single, and it's of convenience because he's just looking for someone that he trusts to have sex with. That's really how I feel. But anyways, y'all, this is a long story, and the only reason why I give y'all like the details, because I really don't always give personal details. I'll interject some here and there if they're relevant to like the message. And unfortunately, my personal story took up the entire length of the message, but I really only share all of that to say this: like, close the door on those revolving energies. Anyone that's been coming in and out of your life, if at this point they have not tried to pursue something of substance, if they have not tried to put titles and labels, if they have not tried to pursue something of longevity, like, close the door on that stuff. Do not continue to let people have access to you. Do not continue to let people walk in and out of your life whenever it's convenient for them. Don't let people do that. I didn't even realize really what I was doing at that time. I just knew that everything in my spirit and my spirit guides, my ancestors were like, end this now. So I did. I just abruptly ended it. And I was, you know what? He keeps going around telling people that his relationship ended out of nowhere and he had no, understanding why, and that the woman just up and walked away. I said, I'm going to actually give him a scenario where that's going to be absolutely true. Only difference is we weren't in a relationship. So I said, next time he goes and tells someone that people are walking in and out of his life with no explanation, no reason why, at least this time he can say that it's true. And the weirdest thing about it is, I walked away and I just completely stopped responding. I had a dream about 2 days later. It wasn't even a week, not even a month. 2 days after I just decided to just completely cut him off, I had a dream where I saw him and a friend talking. And he was telling that friend, like, yeah, and he knew that I cut him off because I had gone on social media. I had unfriended him on Facebook or whatever. So he knew that, like, me not responding was more than just me not responding that one day. He knew it was more because I went and unfriended him on my Facebook account. So I saw in the dream him talking to a friend, and him telling a friend, like, yes, she just up and left and I don't know why. And literally the friend looked at him and was like, isn't that the same thing that happened in your relationship? And the friend was like, I don't understand. Why does this keep happening? Like, there has to be something that you're not telling us, or there has to be something that you're leaving out, because it doesn't make sense that two completely different women would just up and walk away from you and not give you any explanation as to why. So basically in the dream, the friend was like, I call BS. I call BS because it doesn't make sense as to why this keeps happening, right? And I just thought that was so weird that I ended up having that dream literally 2 days after I ended it. But anyways, like, long story short, close that door on revolving energies, and like I said, the other person who, like, sent me that random friend request. I was almost hoping that was the person that randomly texted me. I didn't respond because all they literally did was text me and say my name and nothing more. And I was like, I'm not responding to that. Like, you're going to have to put in a little bit more effort than that. But I was kind of hoping it was that person, because you know what? Me and that person actually did date. And I feel I know enough about you to be a little bit more upfront and direct with you. And I need you to understand that I'm not doing this revolving door. I'm not doing this. You're not going to just walk in and out of my life whenever it's convenient for you. You're not just going to try to come back whenever it's convenient, and whenever, your other relationships don't work. You don't get to just come back and try to check up and see what I have going on. You don't get to just do that. You know what I mean? You don't get to just keep doing that. So I definitely had some words for that person, but haven't had that interaction yet. But I'm letting it be known that I'm closing the door on all of these revolving energies, because you're not just gonna get to keep walking in and out of my life. I'm hearing that song, you can't keep running in and out of my life. Was it keep turning, or however it goes? I don't know the specific words, but like that's the energy that like I'm taking here for it. And that's literally the message for today. Stop letting these people walk in and out of your life. Like close the door on these revolving energies. And just so it doesn't sound like I'm being too judgmental, because I do want to be clear that it is possible for someone to, like I said, I've made mistakes in my past, right? I'm far from perfect, no one is, but it is possible for someone to have done things in the past, or maybe, things didn't work out in the past and this person has come back around. But what I'm saying is that for these people that are, in this revolving energy, that really aren't trying to pursue anything, you know what I mean? Anything of substance, let those people go. But for the people who are trying to come back, but they are healing, you know what I mean? They are either already healed or they are in their healing process. Like, I'm all for not jumping into anything, but kind of taking it slow and kind of just maybe befriending that person in their healing process, and then seeing if maybe something can be, maybe you can build on that at a later time and date, right? But and like I meant to say this earlier, but I got sidetracked. But like the thing for me, other than the fact of me finding out that this person literally jumped in my inbox a week and a half after the person that he wanted to be, the person that he essentially wanted to marry, had dumped him, was the fact of us talking and just comments that he made that showed he wasn't healed. Like, even when he was asking me to go on a date, I told him, I said, even though, and this was 2022, so at that time my last relationship had been in 2021, so it had been over a year. But I told him, I said, even though it's been over a year since I've gotten out of my last relationship, I said, I still am not fully healed. I still am not, I'm not fully where I want to be in order to really dive into anything new. And not only that, I'm still like deep in my spirituality and trying to navigate this and just trying to grow spiritually, while at the same time healing mentally and emotionally. So I said, I'm not really even at a place where I'm ready to date. I'm still healing. And he made the comment of like, yeah, I understand. He said, I went through my healing too. And I had to get through that before I knew I was ready to date again. So, I understand that you have to go through that, and you have to, you can get back out there when you're ready, just to say. And I just remember thinking like, okay, there's no time frame on healing. You know what I mean? There's no time frame. Who am I to say that someone couldn't have been fully healed in a week and a half? But and like I said, like, I stretched this out much longer than it needed to be. So a lot of these conversations were had at different points, but this conversation, when I sat back and thought about it, and I just thought to myself, like, you literally just got out of a relationship with someone who you claimed you thought you were going to marry and spend the rest of your life with a week and a half before you jumped in my inbox. Like, you were fully healed in a week and a half. Like, even when you first jumped in my inbox and we were discussing it, you were talking about how you were so confused, how you hadn't gotten any closure and all of this and whatnot. So in the same breath of you being confused and not having closure, you were still fully healed and ready to move on. Like, it seemed weird. And then, like I said, there were other things that just weren't adding up for me. And I'm gonna be honest, y'all, because of things that I've been through, my trust, definitely something that I need to work on. So I do have a tendency, and this is just me being honest about myself, I do have a tendency to sometimes read too much into things. And I know that that's something that I have to work on. So any person that I do date is going to have to be understanding, and they're going to have to be a great communicator. This particular person, he double talks. And I've heard people use the term double talk before. I don't know if that's necessarily, I don't know exactly what that means, but you know, I've heard the term before. And this is, you know, this person, like, when I say that, I mean, like, he'll make a comment, right? And then if I question it, or if I say, well, I don't understand, can you explain to me? Because I said, you know, we all have a different level of understanding, so can you explain? Or he'll make a comment, and maybe I'll say, oh, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. He'll be like, well, no, where'd you get that from? And I'd be like, well, you literally said that. No, it's not what I said. Like, yeah, you literally word for word said. And one other thing about texting, and it does, you know, I can see how from a opposite person's perspective it would seem trivial. But one thing about texting is, like, the proof is there. Like, one thing about texting is I have the receipts. So when I'm like, well, here, like, screenshot, like, here's the message that you sent me where you specifically said XYZ. And now that I'm asking about it, now you're like, oh, no, I know I said, you know, XYZ, but what I really meant was, you know, ABC. And it's like, okay, well, then why didn't you say it? He's like, oh, well, you know, it's just the way that I talk and all this and that. But it happened multiple times, you know, like, okay, I'll give you an example. So I mentioned before about him having issues with relationships, and he didn't have his first real relationship. You know what? Now that I think about it, we all didn't have our first real relationships until we were adults. I mean, and you might have some people who've had, like, high school sweethearts that may have lasted for years. So in that case, yeah. But I'm going to say the majority of us, our first real relationships really weren't until we were adults, if we're just being serious. You know, I'm not counting puppy love. Not that I'm discrediting that anyone wasn't in love in their teenage years, but I'm not counting puppy love for the purposes of this conversation. But anyways, it's really dark out here. Did all the lights go off? So I started this extremely long episode when I was going in, because I signed up to work some extra hours this afternoon, and now I'm actually getting off. It's the end of the night, and it's really dark outside. It's like I don't think the street lights are working. So I'm gonna take the main roads home. I'm not gonna take the back roads because it's dark out here and the street lights aren't working, and I'm not the best driver at night. But anyways, when we were talking about, like, when he brought up, you know, his first real relationship, and he was talking and he was like, yeah, you know, that was the first person I ever loved. He was like, I still love her. He was like, even to this day, if she ever calls me and needs anything, I'm right there. And I was like, you know, pause. Like, I said, has that ever caused you any issues in your relationships, in, like, subsequent relationships? He was like, well, no. He was like, it's just not like she just calls me all the time. It's just like, you know, because of the love. He said, you know, no matter, he said, you know, she's moved on. He even said that she's married and has children. And I don't know what it is, because I did another recording where I was talking about another guy that I worked with, a guy that I worked with. I didn't work with this person, that, you know, was doing all these things for this woman who subsequently got married to someone else and had kids, yet when this person is calling, you're still like answering. Like, why are you still at this person's beck and call? And I remember just thinking, and he was like, well, no, she doesn't like call all the time and stuff, or she's married and she has a husband and she has children and things. But he was like, it's just because the love I have for her is so, he was like, I love hard, and the love I have for her is so real that if she ever were to call me, I would be right there. And I'm like, okay, like I'm hoping that just because of the nature of how deep our conversation got, that this was just him being completely open and honest with me. And I appreciate the honesty. Like I said, I take my time with conversations, and you can say whatever you want about me maybe putting too much time and energy into doing that, but I'm a believer. What they say, like, what do they say? Like, you don't really get to know someone until you've known them for like a year or something like that. But I don't even believe that, because people change. People change. I don't care if you've known someone since middle school. They are not the same person they were in middle school. Maybe you've read that rare blue, I don't know, falcon or whatever, that's still the same person, but people change. So it's really hard to get to know someone. So you kind of like have to ask those questions to get those deeper underlying responses, but you can't just do it flat out, because people get so defensive. They get so defensive. So you have to be strategic. And when you're having conversations with people, and like, I just absolutely love doing that. So we're just talking and having conversations, and he mentioned that, and I asked him, I said, do you think that maybe you have like an attachment style of dating? I said, because I've dated people, and even if the relationship didn't work, obviously, I'm not married, so obviously it didn't work, for whatever reason. I said, I still wish that person the best. If we did make it to the point where I said that I love you, then, I still have love for you, but I'm not still in love with you, not after all this time. And he was like, oh, that's another one where he was, oh, well, no, like, I know I said this, but what I meant was, and I was like, okay, I get what you're saying. So, okay, so you're not in love with her, you just have love for her. That's fine, I understand that. But I said, the fact that, I'm now, for some reason, I'm hearing I come to you with open arms. There's nothing to hide. Believe what I say. But I said, the fact that you said if this person were to ever call, you would like come and you would show up. I said, I mean, there has to still be something there, because I'm not gonna lie. I've had, exes call me times. Like, I've had an ex that I haven't spoken to since, what was it, 2012, that randomly hit me up and was like, hey, I need a favor. I don't know what the favor was. I have no idea what the favor was, because I absolutely did not hit this person up. Did not hit them up. Did not even respond. I did not even respond to the message. Like, what are you talking about? I haven't spoken to you, and this was like a couple of years ago. So I was like, we haven't spoken in years. We have not spoken since 2012. Let's just say, for example, this was, I think it was during COVID. So I'm going to say 2020, but that date might be wrong. So if I bring this up in another recording, like months from now, I'm not lying. I just can't remember specifically because I don't have the message right in front of me. But let's say, for example, like if the message was sent in like 2020, it's been like 8 years since the last time I've heard from you, and you had the nerve to hit me up and say, hey, I need a favor. Like, I don't have anything for you. Whatever you have going on, I hope it works out. I hope you get it taken care of. I hope whatever it is works out for the best, but I'm not going to be able to do anything for you. Now, that's just me. I understand that not all people are like that, and no, I don't expect all people to operate like me. But I said, this woman is moved on. She is married with children. Not that it's not noble that you wouldn't still be there, because you genuinely had love for this person. What makes you think that this person would even pick up the phone to call? Is her marriage having trouble? Like, are y'all, y'all are still friends, Okay, I understand that. You still speak to her. Y'all are friends. Y'all still speak, whatever. Is she having trouble in her marriage? Like, why would you think that this woman would ever even pick up the phone to ask you for anything? And if she did, I urge you to be careful with that. Because if she's married and she's moved on and she's in another relationship, I can't even say relationship. I have to stress the fact that this woman is in a marriage and she's still picking up the phone, calling you, asking you for things. I would most certainly tell you to be cautious with that. Be cautious with that, but who am I to say? It's just maybe this is one of those things that I'm just reading too hard into. That's 100% possible. It's 100% possible. But it just gave me this energy of someone who just has attachment style issues. And the reason that I say that and still is because, like I said, we had talked over a span of months before I finally just up and disappeared. Like, it was over a span of about 9 months that we talked and had conversations. And of course, this is not like every single day, but where we would talk and have conversations. And I remember, let's go back. Him saying that he was completely over and was completely healed from the ex. He mentioned initially that he was lost, he was bewildered, he was all this stuff. When she ended the relationship abruptly, he had no understanding and no reason why. And then, weeks, months down the line, when we're talking about going through healing, he's saying, oh, by the time I hit you up, I was completely healed. Like, okay. And then let's go a little bit further. And he ends up, we were talking one time about closure. We had a conversation about closure. And I was telling him, I said, I had to get to a point where I kind of had to come to grips with sometimes I'm just not going to get closure, and it sucks. It does. But I really had to come to terms with the fact of sometimes I'm not going to get closure. And I said, I'm not going to lie and say that it doesn't make it that much more difficult to heal, but it can be done. And I remember we were talking and I said, when she, ended the relationship, I said, that last relationship, when she ended it, I said, did you ever think maybe, I said, some people are different communicators. I said, sometimes people need space before they can communicate. I said, did you ever think to maybe give her some space and to let her kind of just mentally get settled and then reach out a little bit later to see what happened? And he was like, oh yeah, I did. And so it turns out, after he had messaged me, 3 months after that, he had actually re-messaged her and tried to talk to her and see how everything was and see how she was and all this. And he was like, she responded. He was like, first of all, she never responded. What she did was she blocked me. He was like, she blocked me on the phone. He said she blocked me on Facebook. He said she went on Facebook and blocked me on Facebook, so I can't even message her through Messenger. And I said, what's so funny? I said, the only way you would know that is if you would have had to have tried. You know what I mean? So like, you text her and didn't get any response. And the good thing about, iPhone is when you text someone and it'll show delivered at the bottom so you can see that the message was delivered. If you text someone and you don't get that delivered status, then your message wasn't delivered, right? Your message wasn't delivered. So that's one like little trick that you can see that you were blocked. So I said, so you obviously messaged her, she didn't respond, and you tried, because Facebook is a little stupid. Like, now that Facebook and Messenger are separate, they're one, but they're separate. You can block someone on Facebook, but then you still have to go back and like block them on Messenger too. Or you can block someone on Messenger and not have them blocked on Facebook. It's really weird like that. But I said, so for you to have known that she blocked you on Messenger too would have meant that you would have had to have gone to Messenger and attempted to, try to send something, and then you would have seen. So I said, so then I didn't say this, but in my mind, so I'm like, okay, so you reached out, got no response, and subsequently tried reaching out again only to discover that you had been blocked. So that is another thing that makes me think of, okay, she blocked you? Like, she ended the relationship abruptly, and then you tried to reach out months later when things should have been cooled down, and she responded by blocking you, and you're gonna stick with the story that you just have no earthly idea where any of this came from. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Not when we have been sitting here talking for months now, just trying to catch up. And we've been sitting here doing all this talking for months. So, and you're such a big communicator. So you mean to tell me that in the months leading up to that, y'all, I mean, what was the communication like? I'm sorry. I don't buy it. So most definitely there is some healing there. There is some healing there that needs to be done. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like revert back to the story again when I was really trying to end this recording. But I'm saying, like, if anyone from your past does attempt to kind of come back, make sure that they're healed. You know what I mean? Don't let people keep going in and out of your life in that revolving energy with that unhealed energy. Like, don't allow someone to maneuver through your life in this revolving manner with that unhealed energy. Like, don't allow that. Like, in that, cut that. And I'm not saying that you have to cut that person off forever, but cut that energy. Cut that. And you can let them know without even saying anything. Like, you don't even necessarily have to sit down and tell them, like, hey, I need you to do X, Y, Z. If you just by cutting them off, they're going to know that, hey, there are definitely some things that I need to work on. And if you really want to know if that person is serious about you, they're going to take the time, they're going to work on what they need to work on, and then they're going to come back. They're going to come back. Like, y'all, I got so mad. And this is like the person coincidentally that sent me the Facebook friend request randomly a couple months ago. But I remember I got so mad at him years ago that I blocked him from being able to call and text me. And I blocked him on Facebook so he couldn't message me. Y'all know this man sent me an email. And I thought, first of all, I don't even know. Oh, you know what? I did use his email because I used to have thumb drives. Y'all remember when like thumb drives came out? And I had my resume, because we went to college together, and when we graduated, I was applying for jobs, and I had my resume on my thumbnail, and I lost my thumbnail one time, and he was like, why do you keep walking around with that goofy thumbnail? He was like, just email yourself your resume so you always have it. He was like, you can get your email on your phone. Well, this is like when emails were first like on the phones, and well, not first, but like when it was becoming more popular. He was like, you could pull up your email from anywhere. And he was like, and if you're online on the computer and you're putting in an application, all you have to do is log into your email, download your resume, and then upload it into the application. He was like, stop with that goofy thumbnail, because I have a bad habit of losing things. Y'all, when I tell y'all, when I moved one time, I found so many different thumb drives all over the place because I kept losing them. And I found a bunch of them that had like a bunch of random stuff on it. So I remember emailing, and I don't know why. I guess, like you can email things to yourself. Back then, I don't know why I didn't think to do that, but I remember emailing him my resume so that I would keep it in my sent file so that I would always have a copy of it. So I guess he kept, because that was literally the only email I ever sent him. Like we were definitely not the type of couple when we were dating that was emailing each other. Like we weren't on that. That was literally the only email I have ever sent him. Was that? Oh no, I take that back. He was trying to find a job in the DOD, and I have family members that work for the DOD, and he was also he was also trying to apply, and he wanted one of my family members to look at his resume and to see if they could help him kind of like spruce it up so that he would look more appealing to apply for a DOD job. So there was 2 emails when he emailed me his resume, and then I had to, forward it to one of my family members. So there was twice. So like I said, I got mad at him and blocked him and completely forgot about that. This fool emailed me. So when I tell you Like, if someone really wants to come back and work on things and be in your life, they will find a way. They will absolutely find a way. I've had someone drive and show up at my doorstep, which consequently I do not like at all. But I've had people do that, or a person do that, I should say. So people will find a way, but definitely don't ever allow someone to keep revolving in and out of your life unhealed, because and it's, and for some people it will, allowing them to do that will kind of drag you into their karma, and it will create negative situations and negative scenarios that you're later either going to have to heal from or dig yourself out of, depending on the nature of it. But then on top of that, I remember when I got my spiritual reading, and I remember being told, and it's crazy because I didn't understand this at the time, because at the time that I got this reading, it was before this person came back into my life. So at the time I didn't understand it, but I remember the reader telling me, be careful about not putting your foot down. And she was like, everybody, has ancestors. We all have that. We have spirit guides. We have that. You have deities, if you work with them or not, whatever. But she was like, be careful about not putting your foot down, because she said you have a spiritual team that I'm hearing, like, shoot first, ask questions later kind of spiritual team. And she was like, especially when you're on your healing journey and you're getting into spirituality and you're doing all these things, and you finally woken up, and your ancestors, your guides, these deities are like, hey, we got a mission for you. We have things we need you to do. Once you've awoken and you started that mission, we don't have time for setbacks. We don't have time for setbacks. We don't have time for games. We need you to get going, because you got things that you need to be doing. Really, I'm hearing for somebody, your team is like, there's things that should have already been done. So at this point, we really don't have time to play. So when people are coming into your life with malice intent, your team is not playing with them. Your team is not playing with them. So I remember the reader telling me, your team is like, look, you need to learn how to take care of things before we do. And at the time, I was like, what are they talking about? Like, take care of what? I was genuinely lost. I did not know what she was talking about. And then when this situation happened, it just reminded me of that reading, because my team, and it's not just me, a lot of people, especially, like I said, the earth angels, reincarnated deities, ambulance. The people who have come back to earth for a specific mission, your guides, your deities, your ancestors, they don't have time for the games. So you really need to learn how to handle these situations before they have to, because once they jump in, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. So really, what she was telling me is that when someone is in your life and you're getting that feeling, you're getting that inclination, and that this person is just in your life to play games, don't sit back and just allow it to happen, because then your team is going to get pissed off, and they're coming for that person's head. Like, with all, that's basically how it was told. Like, your team, when they come, and when your team was basically like, when they get involved, heads will roll, right? That's heads will roll. So don't let it get that far, and don't even allow someone to play with you like that. So that's why my team was telling me to cut this now, because even in my digging, because I'm just a naturally curious person, I love to get inside people's heads. Does that sound bad? But like, seriously, I just want the truth. I don't want to be all in your business. I don't need to be all that. Like, don't tell me anything that you don't want me to know. But if we're sitting here and we're genuinely talking and having a conversation, like, I want to know the truth. I want to know how your mind works, because like I said, we're all different. We can do two different things, and it may seem like like, you know, like we're opposing one another, but it could just be that we're both responding differently. You know, we all respond to things based off our perception and based off our experiences. So it's not necessarily always a bad thing. So I love to talk to people. I love to just get in people's head, because I want to understand, like, you did that, and I understand that you did something, and it's fine. It happens. We all get up and do things every day. But what I want to understand is why you did that, and what you were hoping to accomplish and achieve by that. Or are you just out here willy-nilly just doing things? Because in that case, I don't know. But like, what's the underlying reason why you did that, and what were you hoping to accomplish? And then once we get there, maybe we can find a more constructive way that you can do these things. But nonetheless, y'all, I can literally sit here and talk for another hour, but I'm gonna try not to do that. But nonetheless, like, I don't know about y'all, I'm ready for some new energy. I am ready for some new energy, right? And can I just say this? It is very possible for new energy to come in the shape of an old person, but that person is gonna have to heal. They're going to have to heal. So your new energy for someone else may very well be in the shape of an old person who's coming back healed. The key word is healed. But nonetheless, y'all, I'm ready for some new energy. I'm tired of this revolving old energy. We're not doing that anymore. I'm closing the door on all of that. I'm hearing like time after time. But yeah, I'm closing the door on all of that. And I am just sitting here. I'm waiting for this new energy that's going to be coming in, right? But y'all, I promise that is it now. So let me go ahead and end this here. That is the message for today. I am so sorry that it was so long, but I hope y'all enjoyed this. I know it was a lot, but it just, obviously you can tell by the way I talked about it, was something that like I was really kind of, not, I won't say passionate, but something that really was intriguing to me, right? But anyways, y'all, that's the message for today. Thank you for listening. Bye.